Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the world famous Global International Back Office Show. And I have a rather large box. In fact, I'm going to pull out the camera as far as it can go just so you can see all of it. Now, I recently bought this as part of the Amazon Prime Day, and it was a bit of an impulse buy actually, but I just could not resist. And it's going to sort of take me back to a time when I used to have my own CNC machine, and I kind of lost interest in it, to be honest with you, but now I'm kind of interested in it again. And this is a kit you can buy on Amazon right now. I think it's about £180. I paid £120 as part of the Amazon Prime Prime Day, I want to say, Prime Day sale. So this is what it contains. It contains, it seems, 3 boxes of stuff. It does seem an awfully small box, to be honest. It's an A, B and a C. So let's see, there are some markings on there. Now, I don't know the format of this video because this is a kit to build a CNC machine, so it could be a long and tedious process, so I might have to do some jump cuts. A says, not much really, 775 and 42s, okay. B says 24 volts and USB. And C says 2020 and 2080. So let's see what 2020 and 2080 is. Yeah, a box of metal basically. Plenty of swarf, lovely swarf. Looks like some sort of guide rods, some lead screws there, Acme type thread, bits of metal. So this looks like the chassis, some aluminium cross section there. Yeah, that's quite cute. Okay, let's find some. Let's go with C then. So C is the deluxe computer cable, a USB pen drive which contains probably the software. Again, a disc of the software, and then there's a small picture of the little CNC machine there. Box of screws and those weird type pins, really. Don't really know what those pins are for. AC adapter, laptop style AC adapter, driver board, and you guys can see 3 drivers, X, Y and Z stepper motor drivers. Some cable tidy, really, some of that sort of spinal cord cable tidy. This is really fun, isn't it? This is a bloody fun kit, I have to say. He says without starting the kit, but already I'm excited because I love kits. Oh, another heavy one. Oh, cool. Look at that. Motors. Well, this isn't motors, it's brackets, but look, it's the actual guides, the slides that the different axes will go on, and all the screws and the bearing blocks and everything. Oh, wow. That is cool. And then there's all the corner pieces for mounting it all up. Again, more various hardware to do with those guides and things. I've not noticed an instruction book yet, actually. Heavy box. Heavy box, because look at that, it's got your spindle motor. Look at that's a big ass old motor there. I'm just having a look here. Yes, there are some collets for attaching your drills to. I didn't notice any drills in the kit, but I do have some like in one of my old places, but then, you know, it looks like we're gonna have to separate all these bits out. Oh, heavy. Look at that, those are proper stepper motors. Now, I was kind of expecting it was going to be something a bit like these, you know, these little kind of toy in comparison stepper motors, but these are actual realistic looking ones. How exciting. Marvellous. Okay, so I think I'm going to have to do a jump cut potentially, because I didn't see any instructions at all. So I'm going to have to go away and... Oh, hang on. No instructions. I'm going to have to go away and do my research and then check back with you momentarily. Sorry about the massive amount of glare. Just to let you know though, I plugged in the USB pen drive that it came with, and that had the full instructions duplicated on the CD, the little CD that came with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up on this tablet, because it looked like a 108-page or something Word document, this installation manual, 100 and something page installation manual. So a little bit too much to be sort of wanting to discard that, to sort of going back and forth to my main PC. So I set up this little tablet, and I thought this sort of Windows 10 commodity tablet would be quite good probably to drive the software when I'm done. So I'm going to mount this tablet there, and then just basically work my way through the instructions step by step. So I probably won't record the whole process because that's going to be tedious, but I'll just, as I sort of complete a step, I might just do a quick review of what I did and any issues I had. In terms of tools, I don't think I'm going to need that many, so I'm just going to really have a sort of Allen key set. And that's really it. So I'm just going to sort of pop the tablet away here out of shot, and I shall commence. See you in a second. So this apparently is step 1, and this is the assembling of the frame. Just to point out, it actually does come with the tools, so I didn't need my Allen key set, which is refreshing to say the least. So it looks like I've got to sort of construct some sort of a square. Just going to compare these. So it's going to be 2 long edges and 2 short edges. So I'm going to put these ones to the side. I'm going to run out of space here pretty quickly, actually. But you know, we're not going to do something properly. We're just going to keep building on top of everything else. So that looks to me how that's going to go together. I might just zoom out a bit. And I've got again the little screen in front of me to see what's going on. It does show some hardware, so the implication is there. I'm going to have to go through all the nuts and bolts, of course, in a bit more detail. There's a hell of a lot of them, but I suspect this is the fitting kit for this sort of thing. So there's washers, there's a whole set of nuts, and there's a whole set of bolts. So I've noticed it does seem to use a lot of these serrated, I'll show you now, specialist type of nuts. There you go, a clone, clearly a badly made clone of a standard sort of fitting, maybe something that fancy like Fisher would make. And I'm gonna guess we're gonna need some of these washers. Again, a bit fiddly. So if you've got pots, it might be nice to sort of tip these all out into sort of various little pots to sort of give you easy access, because there's an awful lot of this hardware going on. But what the instructions say, and I'm just sort of browsing, I know I'm browsing, it's quite simple really. It's showing you fitting these together, and I'll just zoom in so you can see what I'm up to. Fitting that through there, popping that. Oh, why is it so fiddly? It's so fiddly to my old fingers. And then you're using these sort of T-bar. There we go, finally. So the idea is, and I'll take off this protective stuff. You can see all the swarf. It's swarf city. Just going to take off that one edge at the moment. You are going to slide these into this cross section like so. There you go. And it did twist there rather annoyingly. Stay boy. And then with your appropriate Allen key, try to tighten that up, but I can see it's already spun round. You bastard thing. I'm guessing there is a knack to this. We'll get there, let's try again. Ugh. How did it even work its way through? Now I did read in a review that someone said you're gonna learn to hate these T nuts or whatever they called them. Yeah, I can see why. It does look like a fiddly bugger, and I don't know why my hands are not cooperating. Again, I don't know. It's not cold out here. If you're doing this in the winter, I should think you should warm the place up a bit, because it's going to be an awful fiddly job to do with cold phalanges. Right, and I've got this the wrong way round, but I'm doing it on purpose because I want to just keep tension on that nut while I turn it round. Come on. Yes, phew, finally. Good. So it does allow though for quite a lot of adjustment, which is nice, isn't this system? So you can't really go wrong. There we go. That's the first one. So what I'm going to do is repeat the process for this and work my way around the frame, and we'll move on to the next step. The main framey bits are assembled. So if I was going to describe the process thus far, it was a little bit fiddly, but you start to get pretty good at it, to be honest. It's like your fingers have got used to the sort of technique. So that's the main frame parts. So it looks like then you've got to sort of assemble now the X and Z axes, and that was all of these bits. So I'm going to sort of move these aside and then start laying out the other bits. I'm running out of space already. I really must tidy up this space. Yeah, I was rather surprised. Again, like Meccano is probably the best way of describing it. It's really not so bad. I suspect even you'd be able to buy these kits ready assembled if they wouldn't be so bulky to ship. Put some of these other bits aside. So you can imagine these plates are the ones where all the various bits of hardware mount and sort of slide through. They're aluminium, nice and light. I've got a little picture opposite me just to show you the parts in order. So they're saying those bits, those bits, those bits, those bits, those bits, and those bits. So that's good, all the parts are there. And then it's showing an awful lot of what looks like things like these angle brackets. So I'm going to sort of attack these. These are sort of more genuine Meccano style because they're using regular nuts as well. So I'll jump into that and see how far I get. Moving to the country, we're gonna eat a lot of peaches. So I am assembling now. So you can see I'm fitting a tiny little bit of brassware in it now. So this is the actual nut type thing, I don't know what you exactly call it, that takes the screw thread through it. It's quite a nice little design really. It's the way it's designed, it sort of pushes through this part here, and I'll show you a little bit closer when I've got the nut on. Means that it doesn't have to have massive amount of tolerance in the aluminium part, just a reasonable tolerance, because then they're going to put this brass guide more or less in there, which will be as accurate as it needs to be and obviously be able to wear a lot better than aluminium. So yeah, more tightening, more Meccano type stuff, and I suspect what we'll see at some point is a motor going to go on one of the ends here somewhere among that. Just having a look though at the diagram. Okay, I've done it wrong. So you don't need as many screws as I've put in here, because indeed 2 of these will be motor mounts. So I'm going to just remove those. Try to tighten them up. Yet another Allen key. Yet another Allen key size to deal with. Bit more fiddly though this time. Look, you've got to get in there. There's going to be some standoffs here to fit. The carriages are assembled, and just a word of warning when you're doing it. Pay attention to which way round these nuts and bolts go in these bits here. I got them wrong. And also when you're mounting up these standoff parts, use the smaller screws. I used the long screws and then had to unwind them and do them again. That's not a big deal, but I could have done without it. So I can't believe though, we're already on mounting stuff to motor hardware. So the motors themselves, at least this one, seems to require 4 long standoffs, and I'm kind of hoping there's more hardware here, because there's not a massive amount of spare stuff. Actually, I think the motors have changed because these standoffs won't work. Look, 4 tiny studs. Now because it is in Chinese, some of the instructions, some of these bags have Chinese writing on them, and it might just well be an errata or revision or new motors or something have been changed. So it's going to be a little bit tricky if you're doing this at home. There we go. Those are an Allen key stud there. That's quite interesting. These motors, incidentally, if you compare them to the motors in the instruction document, are a lot beefier. They look like they're almost double the height. So perhaps they discovered in their early revisions that the machine wasn't running smoothly enough. It was sticking because it didn't have enough torque, so they've upped the game. So you can see how far these push in. Okay, so they sort of seem to push in, you can see there, to about, I don't know, 3 mil. I'm guessing that's more than enough. I'm not going to wind them in too tight because I kind of feel that when you push the standoff over the end, the standoff is going to try to force it in too. So I'd rather probably a little bit longer in the standoff end, but that's fine. And I only noticed this type of hardware actually for this one motor, so perhaps the other motors do mount in a sort of slightly different way. We're always sort of slightly nervous when you've got kits that you're going to miss a part, and a missing part out of this one's going to really slow me down because, one, it's probably unlikely you're going to get the part from the manufacturer. I mean, you might not. You're going to wait for it to come from China, sort of thing. And you're unlikely to sort of be able to find it locally, this stuff, because a lot of these things, actually, to be fair to the manufacturer here, a lot of these parts do seem to be handmade. I'm just going to have a little skip ahead. We've done that. Oh yeah, I can see in the instructions actually it does show how to fit this. It does look like you're using a serrated washer, but yeah, just straight in like that. Motor actually attached. So I'm going to have a rummage. I'll have a rummage through the hardware pot and crack on with that. So it all comes together. So there you can see that's the, I'm presuming, the Z-axis slide. And it's not that smooth, and I'll tell you why. You have to adjust these 4 screws on this sort of rail, and because there's probably slight twist in this, it's not massively accurate. You'll get it where it will either not move or move very erratically. And at the moment, it's quite smooth in the middle bit, and then it gets stiffer on the ends, and it's a lot to adjust. You can adjust that all out eventually, but I'm not going to worry about it too much because I think potentially it probably only has a certain amount of motion anyway, which is that bit in the free area. I don't think it will go end to end. And even if it does, by the time I install the rest of this hardware, it's bound to have gone out again. So the final adjustment I'll make when the machine is all basically assembled. But I'm just going to put this sort of threaded bar through. I can't remember what you call these. Is it a lead screw perhaps? And I do remember, the thread on them was described as an Acme thread. There's some sort of specific thread gauge. So I've actually installed here, you can see I've installed the motor, but I've also installed this coupler, which is quite cool. You can see it allows for slight, basically, tolerance differences between things. You can see here it's actually pushing, my carriage now is moving back and forth. So I'm just going to loosen these small little Allen screws, some grub screws in there, because the idea is you're going to push that threaded bar into it. See, like that, it went nicely in there. Not sure how far you need to go, but let's see. I'm going to go, yeah, that's pretty damn decent amount, that much. Hopefully not too far. We can always adjust it later. Then I'm just going to tighten these screws. So that I tightened it till the pips squeak there. If you're doing this, you might want to consider using Loctite. I mean, you could do it properly. I can't twist any of this bloody thing. So I don't know if that's for me, that's kind of a bad sign. Yeah, it really shouldn't be that tight. Let's loosen this up. So like most sort of CNC 3D printer type machines, you're going to have to play with the setup. There's always going to be a bunch of that to deal with. I'm just sort of looking here as well. It's quite far out. This it's already distorting that quite a lot by the time I'm even pushing it in. So if you can see there, it's not really where my fingernail is pointing. It's kind of already out, so it's already putting a lot of strain on that. That might well be what's going on. So probably a lot of little minor adjustments required now just to get this to work. Let's have another go just clamping this. I'm not going to push it in so deep now, so that will give it more chance to act as a sort of constant velocity joint really. But yeah, I can't move this. You can hear the sound it makes when it turns. Not good. Hi ho, it's off to work we go, with a bucket and a spade and a hand grenade. Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho. Do 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 do. I've got my carriage assembled, got my motor in my hand. What the frick? How does that work? Ah, okay. Something. We're getting there. So I've got the motor going in now, and I've connected these slides, and I spent ages trying to adjust that, and I couldn't get it, out from being very stiff, even after I sort of put all the bearings and everything on it. But I don't know, I think that's just maybe why there's probably just a lot of preload on the system, and that could be why they've just put those big ass motors on it just to sort of defeat that. So the nice thing is, if you've got all the load basically in the metalwork of the device itself, it shouldn't slop around too much because it's under under such tension. The only downside is you can't sort of freewheel it around by hand. Just looking here though, there's some nuts required, some bolts to bolt this motor on, and you want to be a bit careful that you don't overcook it. But I think this size is about right, so let's try that. It's sort of going quite quickly now, the build. I suspect there'll be a lot of messing around at the end, calibrating and setup, but I'm reasonably confident that if you can get it calibrated, and there's a big if there, then it's likely to stay calibrated, especially if you sort of use a bit of Loctite or some other adhesive on these threads. I'm just really looking around. The sort of nuts and bolts I've got don't seem to be 100% compatible with this motor. In fact, I'm not even convinced it's sort of tapped out for this. So yes, I will experiment with that, and if I have to, I'll get the tap and die kit out and make it fit. Had to cut a new thread in that motor. It was a bit stiff, but got in there. That's fine. I'm not sure how much swarf kind of fell in there. Hoping not too much. So let's have a look in the bag. It does have a bag of interesting fittings, and one of those fittings is the sort of collet to go over there. I don't know if that sort of depends on the size of the bits you've got. So I've got particular size bits lying around, sort of carbide cutters, but let's have a look. Yeah, they seem to be both the same, so maybe it's just spares. So I'm just going to prepare those. It does have little grub screws to go in them. I believe we need 2 each. Ah, so easy to lose. They do seem to give you quite a few of those though, fortunately. Just going to pop them there in the E of the back of this and then shut that bag right up. So that's of course how your cutting bit, your milling bit is going to sort of connect, and it's not something you're going to want to hopefully change too often because they're quite fiddly, but you do break them. So if you've got the sort of speed set too high, your bit will crunch. It can either crunch into the workpiece or then be dragged sideways through it in a way it doesn't want to be, and that causes you all sorts of grief. But that seems to be all there is to it. Let's get the other little grub screw in. Oh no, there's actually quite a lot. There's 4 grub screws each. I don't know why I thought there's only 2. But that's way better. Again, this top one where it connects to the motor, you really could put Loctite in it. I don't think there's going to be a massive need to sort of swap that out. But then on the other hand, they did give you 2 collets, so why would they give you 2 if they didn't expect you to have to faff with it? So here we are. I think this is a natural time for me to stop and show you what I'm up to. Assembled everything else. I've got some interesting features here, like this anti-backlash sort of setup here. Again, it's all quite stiff. What I found I had to do is I actually had to loosen up some of these screws here and then play with this plate. So there's slight misalignment, and then it causes the whole thing to get a bit too stiff. So I suspect there'll be some adjustment, and it's in these 4 brackets here, the little L-shaped brackets that held that main carriage on. There's just a little bit too much play in there, so but it's kind of at the same time it gives you scope for adjustment. So the next bit now I think is to actually just I think we've got the X and the Z carriage, so I think we just have to assemble the Y, but you can see it's already taking shape. So that's the bit here. So this is going to be, I'm going to do a top view here. So this is moving left and right. That'll be like your X-axis, depending on how you look at it, and then your Z-axis is this motor moving the spindle up and down. So all this now is going to have to sit on something. If I'm going to sort of give a guess, looking at the parts we have, I think there's going to be some sort of gantry going on with this, and I think that's going to be the bed there somehow, and that's as far as I got right now. We'll work it out. But I'm going to have a cup of tea, reset myself, and then we'll come back and have a look at the rest. Just fitting these little nut things. I think 2 novel so far, but I suspect we're going to have to slide this whole assembly into something. So what's nice is it's pretty much just a repeat as you go through these, so you'll get used to sort of assembling some of this stuff. Hopefully we haven't made any catastrophic mistakes along the way. So far it appears we've got the right amount of bits, at least, not short of any parts. Get that out. There seems to be just about enough pictures usually that you can't go too far wrong, but every now and then it does make me scratch my head and sort of think, have I done that quite right? And I'm just looking now, I'm kind of worried that I'm running out of certain long screws, but then I've noticed there might be a few additional ones in this bag. There are, so they seem to be grouped by certain order, of operation, and because of the sort of design changes, I think, like this bag has some additional writing on it, you might find there's something that you think is missing is just in another place, so it's a bit of luck. But yeah, just sort of, I'm getting quite into the swing of this. I was considering giving up for the day. It's probably about 7-8 PM at night now after a day of work. I don't really know how long I've been at it. I should have sort of started a timer, but it's not been massive amounts of time. I wouldn't think it's more than maybe an hour and a half, so I kind of probably battle through. I did read something, it was quite interesting. There's a review that someone wrote on Amazon, I think, and they posted that it took them 6 hours to build this. I'm kind of at a loss really to think how you could take 6 hours to build this. So I'm going to reckon you could probably do it in a concert 3. You could probably just whack it out in 3. Just looking at the diagrams here, that's all looking good. They give you enough pictures though to actually, you know, see what you're up to. But look at this. This is a bit of a tricky devil, isn't it? You've got this carriage and you've got to slide these in, so you've got these T-shaped things, but invariably as you're posting them through, they'll rotate because they're not quite made to the accurate tolerances that they're really supposed to. So if you turn them and you feel they're not quite biting, that'll be the reason they're not. They've just. You see this one in the end? Oh, that was lucky. It just turned. Sometimes they'll just not align correctly, but I think you've got enough there in these 4. Rinse and repeat, I think. But I think after this part, the whole process really can't take too long. Yeah, you just pretty much. So the last set of slides, things like that going on. Let's get this one in. Again, I didn't take massive care that time, but yeah, look, see how it just fell out. They all went in more or less the right way, but just managed to twist themselves around. So I'm not sure how many of these are really holding it by the end. You might only have the 2 end ones that you can actually see. That one's good. Who knows? That one probably not. This one, yeah, last second it just turned around. Excellent. So I'd advise though, don't tighten up all of those quite yet till you post these through. Yeah, I think that's. I might even sort of suggest that you leave this whole device kind of loose. Certainly just hand tight. Don't over crank it, because without a shadow of a doubt towards the end of this you're going to have to get in there and sort of tighten this up. Right, I'll just carry on now with the assembly of this slidey bit. That went together super quick. Guess I'm getting really good at it. I'm now mounting those strange frame bolts to it because it looks like I've got to do a horrendous thing now. Ah! Don't be lost, don't be lost. Woohoo! Found it. Landed right on my lap. I've got to actually install this now inside that square frame we built earlier. So it does make me wonder why they got you to assemble the whole frame up beforehand, which is this one. So basically you've got to get it in here, but I would have suggested, if I was designing this kit, I've got to zoom out even further so you can see, I probably would have maybe suggested you install something first. It's going to be a bit, I'm not sure, I'm not convinced I'll be able to slip all this in anyway without loosening the outer frame, but that's kind of what they intend you to do. Yeah, I think I'm just going to probably loosen some of these. After all my painstaking squaring up. That one. And that one. So it's not a particularly chatty video, is it, this time round, but I think maybe that conveys either a combination of my tiredness or how much concentration is probably required in assembling one of these. Certainly not something you want to just sort of take lightly. It's just for the pure reason that if you make a mistake, seem to have to go back to the sort of very beginning to sort it out. So I'm not sure if that one did bite. So we've got to get this. No, it didn't. Yeah, you remember saying about these things not spinning around and biting? I'm not sure at all how they wanted you to do this. I suspect if you're super unlucky, you might have to just dismantle the whole thing and start again. That one's not in. That one's probably in a bit, so I'm just going to try to tighten it a bit more. Maybe after I just kind of make sure we're centralised, assuming we have to be. Right, let's see. It's got a bit of bite on that one. That's probably locked in. So we just got to get this one locked in. So that one we can clearly see isn't. I think the process for locking them in is really just loosening them. Yeah. And then tightening them back in and hoping that it's bit into something. Good. That's not so bad. Let's do the other side. So we've got our ones which we've loosened. It's amazing that all these pieces of metal are now virtually all used up and just all gone together to form this device. And it's weird, the box that the parts come in don't feel particularly heavy, but once it's starting to get into something like this, it does feel substantial. If you compare it to, say, something you'll buy, you know, any kind of consumer electronics-y type thing, there's a lot of metal in this. So I'm really quite glad I've got these long Allen keys in my own set, because you're going to have to do a lot of trial and error to get these horrible nuts to tighten up. Good, that's lucky. Lucky that one wanted to tighten up, but the ones which don't, like this other side, is going to be tricky. But maybe before I get to the other side, I'm just going to check the alignment of these guys, make sure they're all as best as they can be. Yes, they're kind of there. Again, I can see that not turning. Please. God, this is a crazy thing, really. I don't know. It's just, if they made these ever so slightly different tolerance, they just wouldn't have these issues. So I'm going to go struggle with this, and I'll see you back after the brave fight. God, the awesome is coming together. So you can see I've already mounted the, well, I've mounted the other bit. You can't see that, but I've already mounted now the X and the Z axis, or Z as we say here, to the upper bit of the gantry. So just sliding these last bits on. So the next stage is bringing the two halves together in a union that will last forever. And then really looking at I had a quick look at the sort of wiring pack when I took it all apart, well, when I unboxed it, and it certainly looks to me like a pretty reasonable. So I just managed to use the one long bolt I've got. No washers. And yeah, the wiring system looks like a pretty reasonable way just to sort of hook it up. I didn't recall seeing anything that I actually had to, you know, fit by soldering or anything like that. So all of that should be pretty quick. Can't believe I forgot those washers. It just sort of makes me wonder now, is there any other part of this machine that needs washers that I didn't use? Because they could give you an awful lot of them. Then I suppose, looking in over here, you've got some feet. Each of those is going to consume a washer. So it'll go quickly, no doubt. So with a bit of luck, I kind of don't want to maybe mess too much. I think this video is going to end probably on the construction, or probably already should have ended and been a 3-part video or something on making this. But I think that I'm probably going to get to the point where I want to do an electrical test, and then we'll call it a day, and then the whole calibration and actually cutting something out, probably be another video. So I'm really hoping that the actual software and the sort of firmware has a sort of little guide, you know, it'll run through. Oh, look, we've actually got more feet. Oh, look at this. It wants feet on the front and the back, and the back one's a bit of a problem to put those on nicely. Yeah, so if the software actually has a sort of a guide that lets it just go through and calibrate and just sort of at least home all the gantries and stuff, at least we know it's kind of working, even if it's not, you know, it might be stiff, making a noise, that sort of thing. And that might be a nice sort of future mod, really, is just to sort of jiggle it, have a little control pad so you can move it around by hand. I didn't notice any buttons for homing or doing anything like that. And you know, there's so many aftermarket controllers for CNC gadgets. I've got no doubt whatsoever you'd be able to either modify what it's got or add something new. It would be interesting to see what it's got, because it had these 3 discrete stepper motor drivers. So there's absolutely nothing stopping you hooking up your own Arduino or Pi or Booby board or whatever the hell you're using, and actually just make your own G-code interpreter, or, you know, this seems to be connected via USB anyway, just control it from your PC directly. I don't know if it can download the actual cutting data and then doesn't need the USB once it starts milling. But you know, I guess there's a lot of unknowns right now at this point. Right, so that is the other foot on there. So I guess now is the time to fit it to the one I made earlier. Here's one I prepared earlier. Look at that bad boy there. That's looking rather nice, isn't it? So I've got to figure out whether I put it goes here in relation to here or there. A few bits of devil in the detail I'll work out, but I will get back to you. I think it actually has to go here because of these feet have certain notches cut into them that sort of kind of want to prevent them from going into certain areas. Yeah, I'm sure it's designed to go in there. Right, I better get cracking. Here is the model lying on its back. I've gone off bracket with the back office camera. I'm just going to go and rotate the whole unit so you can see it. That's the unit fully assembled. No electronic control system. That's the next step. But all of the parts are on, including the feet. And yeah, it's all quite stiff, quite firm. Hopefully it'll run once it's powered up. There's not too much binding parts on those, but you can always just jump in. It's going to be fiddly, but you can jump in and loosen stuff. So I'm going to have an explore now into the sort of box here that came with all the other parts, and start thinking how I'm going to assemble those electronic components. Just had a quick look. For the most part, it appears we just have to take this control board, and we've got this piece of pre-cut acrylic or perspex, whatever it is, and we essentially just have to mount the motor and control hardware, the actual control hardware to this for the unit. So it's a case of just figuring out where these standoffs go and then poking them through. So you're basically mounting the board to this piece of plastic, which will be mounted in turn to the frame of the unit. And I have to admit, it's a bit weird because some of this writing. I just realised something. Earlier I didn't know what these things are, but I think these are actually the cutters with little blue caps on them. That's cute. Right, so I'm going to crack on with this, and then we'll see how we mount this onto the main unit. Why didn't I get some bloody sellotape? Oh, look at that. 3. Yeah. Boom. You can put it in wrong, so you've got to pay attention to how I'm putting this in with these holes on the outside. If you get it wrong, you'll be sorry. You won't be able to mount it basically in your unit. How the heck are they? What? Oh, bollocks. I don't know. Something fishy going on here with these standoffs. Yeah, clearly they want you to use these longer standoffs, and I think the idea was you'd put that and then use those small bits of nylon as washers. But if you use the small bits of nylon, I don't think you're going to get that nut on. Or maybe, yeah, I suppose, yeah, you just about can. You just about can. Boom! That should do. The things I do, eh? So these kits are definitely not for the totally, I want to say clueless, but I want to, there's probably something a bit more PC. The clueless isn't really a non-PC term, but I think anybody who wants to learn to do this can do it, and they'll pick it up on the job. But if you're expecting it all just to fall together, that's where you'll get a rather rude awakening. Oh, come on, you bugger. I would just like to get 1/8 of a turn on it. Yay! There you go. Kind of deformed that bit, but that's fine. So that's on there now. And just to show you how that's going to fit on this bad boy. I've got this bad boy here. It goes there. No, it goes there. That's why it's important to get the screws and everything the right way. And why you've got so many more of these funny nut things. Yes, that worked. That is the answer. Only smarties have the answer. Or me. So speaking to somebody today also who got a friend of mine, Jared Rebo, multi-rotor guy, about one of those cheap laser engravers that you see with a 5-watt laser. Similar sort of family to this sort of thing. And I thought they looked quite good because they're only 50 quid. Kind of fancied maybe I'd have a go on one. But he said they're absolutely atrocious. Every aspect of them is crap. So unfortunately he gave it away, but I'd have loved to have a look at that to see what that means. How can something be so bloody awful? Right, good. That's that in. So we start hooking up the electrics. I think we will. And we're going to do it using these pre-terminated cable sets, which makes life a lot easier. So we've got 2 long ones, or three of all equal length. So it's quite simple really. You've got the motor here, you can just about see one of them, and you're going to hook the y-axis, this one will be, and you're going to just plug it in, one on each end. Sure, yes, the connectors are key. They'll only go in one way, so make sure they're the right way round. The stepper motor end won't go into the PCB connector. That's it, that's one of them. Ah, finally, the fruits of one's labour. You can see that it's not totally finished. I haven't actually tidied the wires up and that. It's just jury-rigged. But I thought I'll just hook it up to the computer and see what happens. So here's the button for the spindle. You can hear it going around. And then you've got here the up and down. Oops. See, nice. Then your x-axis. And then your y-axis. So all the parts are there, and it works from the little tablet. Oh, stop. There's no limit switches though, be careful, it can bash itself. I don't know, I think the PCB might have limit switches, you might be able to add those. That's fantastic. So I think I'm in a really good place now, so I'm probably just going to now go to bed, frankly, but then just finish up all the wiring and those things, and the next video we'll actually start playing with this. But I'm very pleased. I don't know how long it's taken, but it's probably 2 or 3 hours. But yeah, you'll get there, and it works great. If you find it doesn't work, like it's a bit stiff, just loosen up the these rails. You know, the guide rails that things on, and then the things will start moving. One of the axes didn't actually move to start with, and then I just loosened these up a bit here, these bars right here. Give it a little wiggle and got it all going again and happy, and once it was moving I just sort of tightened them up slightly. So yeah, they don't have to be massively tight. It's the day after the build, and I thought I'd just wrap this video up, could do a nice conclusion for you. But just to let you know, I've sort of played with the whole system, and I've actually adjusted the machine. As it stood, the bed itself could never reach its full travel the way they constructed it in the diagram. So what I've done is push this gantry. It used to sit here. I've pushed it right to the back as far as it will go, and I've attached the bracket round the side instead of being round the back. So this could technically give it a little bit more wobble, and if you push here, it does move slightly. So what you could do rather easily, you see there's a hole in the end here and there's a hole in the end there. Very easy just to mount a bar across each end to make a sort of triangulation here, and that's going to give that a lot of rigidity, and that's going to be fine. I've tidied up the cables using the sort of wire wrappy spinal column stuff that they give you, and that's all pretty good. You can make that quite neat. If I was doing it again, I would have this motor turned 90 degrees clockwise, which I'm not going to bother doing now. I'd have this top motor again also clicked 90 degrees clockwise, so the wire comes off the back. And this side motor here, the X motor, again I'd have it turned full 180 degrees, so the wire is coming straight out the back there. But they're just really minor things. They're so minor, I'm not even going to bother adjusting them, I don't think. Oh, shut up, Mr. Phone, shut up! In terms of adjustment, just to give you a quick technique for this, what you do, loosen the nuts on the rails, push it one end, by hand ideally if you can, yeah? So wind it in, and then when it gets to that end, tighten them up, take it to the other end and tighten them up, and that'll pretty much parallelize, if that's a word, the rails. Do that top and bottom, and then you'll get it quite smooth, he said. Not really got it connected. Let me just hook the power up. Just push, there's a reset button here. We'll unplug the USB and plug back in. So something you've got to be aware of too when you're doing this, there's actually a reset button on the back, and there are stop buttons and limit switches, so they're likely to be something I'll probably hook up. Oh, I can't get it going right now, but yeah, make sure if you do, mount a stop button here, because it's always hitting the ends at the moment because there's no limit switches. I do have some PCBs. I did see, have a look around for them in my pile of detritus somewhere, wherever they've gone, but they're basically small PCBs with a tack switch. So what I can do is actually mount those, just glue them basically inside here, say, and then when the carriage comes through, it'll hit the tack switch and it'll hit the limit. So this has facilities on the back for pulse width modulation, limit switches, and a big emergency stop switch. So bang, and it will stop. So one last thing I've done, I've just put a bit of old skirting board which has a bit of no more nails on it. That's not ideal actually, that's quite hard. And my idea was I was just going to get this to create a flat bed in this piece of wood as a test, and that's about it. So you can see I've got to sort of tidy up all of the rubbish now in the back office, and probably clean it all out. Now it's time to run this in a cleanish environment. It's all set up, all working, put it onto the big PC, design something and get going. But yeah, in conclusion though, this was a lovely kit. I really enjoyed putting it together, and it's quite a convincing build. And what's really fun is that you can mod this now, you know, like I did for the bed, to make it a bit bigger. You can just do what you like with it really, add things, remove things, put a little fan to clean the dust away, maybe an extractor, Do what you like. Comments down below. Please share, like, subscribe. Tell me about your experience of this sort of machine if you've got one. And as ever, thank you for watching.